Welcome back to the dark side. I'm Brianna.
And I'm Paige.
And this is Dark Adaptation. Welcome to episode 54 of Dark Adaptation. And as you can tell, Paige is back.
I'm back.
I'm so happy you're back.
I'm happy to be here.
I love when you come on the show.
I love being here.
You're just a little hero that comes in, gives me a break, and you're like coming in with all of your little cryptid or folklore, because I don't know.
It's always a surprise now.
I don't know which one it will be this week. It's a surprise until I recommend one, and then you're like, okay, I'll take your recommendation seriously.
But maybe I don't do it right away, so you don't know when it's coming.
Okay, true. Good point.
But if anyone does have any recommendations that they would like out there, please submit it to us, and I will take it into consideration.
Yeah, that's one thing I really want. Case suggestions. It could be through email, darkadaptationpodcast@gmail.com. It could be on Instagram.
Comment on the post.
Comment on the post on Instagram. Send us a message, Dark Adaptation Podcast. It's very original.
It's very simple. You can't miss it.
What's the name of this podcast? Oh, okay, great.
That's it.
Send it there.
Making it as simple as possible for you guys.
So yeah, not only are you a little hero that comes in, that gives me a break, and I get to hear your excellent story. Also today, you showed up in my apartment, 2 bottles of wine in hand.
Gotta come bearing gifts.
Because I don't know who I am. I should be prepared this way. And then I went to get the wine out of, yes, I'm going to say a box. Okay? I like boxed wine.
It's not a shame. Don't shame it.
That last glass, though, I was like, this tastes foul. Like, Dyson taste this. This tastes like vinegar. I'm like, okay, Paige is probably like already on her way. But I'm like, Paige, on your way. Can you please?
No, you got me just in time. I was just about to leave and you messaged me and I was like, sure.
Perfect.
Picked up a couple things for myself.
Now we're good to go. We're here. We're in the studio, all comfy. I'm getting comfy, actually. Yeah. I cross my legs.
I got my blanket on me. I'm good.
Yep. You got a blanket. You actually look very comfortable. You got pillows set up. So you're like leaning into your pillows. You got your blanket, your laptop. Your mic is perfectly here.
My water in case I get parched.
In case I get parched
talking.
Okay, so Paige, before I turn the reins over to you, as you will be pretty much the host of this episode, of course I have to get my hosting fix in.
Of course.
So I wanted to give an Elnaz update.
Yes, please.
So Elnaz Hashtamiri's case is a case that we covered in episode 11. Which was almost a year ago that we covered it. And throughout the past year, as like we've just been releasing episodes, if there's an update, I'll usually like just give an update at the top of an episode. So the last update on her case, I didn't mention in one of our episodes, but I did post about it on Instagram, which again, go follow us on Instagram so you can stay up to date with all this kind of stuff. And it was an update from January 12th, which was the 1-year anniversary of her abduction. And that update was about the police offering a $100,000 reward to anyone with information that will lead to her location. And they had also released composite sketches of 2 of the masked men. And these sketches came based on details that were provided by eyewitnesses to the abduction. And they gave a brief description. So from a CBC article, it says, quote, "Though the images are limited due to the suspects wearing masks, please look closely at their eyes and their features. Someone knows these men. All 3 wore dark jackets over fake police vests and balaclavas with white trim that they pulled over their noses and mouths. And they also had fake police badges chained around their necks." So that was the update that came out in January with the sketches of literally 2 men in balaclavas. So it's like kind of up in the air as to how helpful that is. So on February 16th, this past week, they released more photos and like not composite sketches, like legit photos.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the first set of photos that they released is of suspects that the OPP believe are actually involved or related to her abduction.
Okay.
So from a Barry CTV News article, it says, quote, "On Thursday, police released new images adding the 3 suspects, 2 men and 1 woman, are linked directly to the kidnapping. OPP says the images were taken in Quebec, but the investigation shows the 3 are from Ontario. OPP Detective Inspector Martin Graham said, "I would like to stress we certainly believe that while taken in Quebec, we believe strongly that they are in the Greater Toronto Area, GTA."
Like they're still currently in the GTA area.
Yeah.
They came from Quebec. They're here.
Yeah, they're either always been from the GTA, the photos were in Quebec.
They just maybe made a trip out there.
Which makes sense because her, Elnaz's ex-boyfriend, Mohammed Lilo, it was based in Quebec.
Uh-oh.
And when he was arrested for the assault based on the assault and the abduction, he was living in Quebec. So obviously there's a tie to Quebec, and these photos were taken in Quebec, but they think they're mainly in the GTA area. The GTA.
The GTA,
thank you. It's like saying ATM machine. So they think these people are in the GTA. And I'll post pictures on Instagram so that you guys can look at them. And then the OPP released more photos. This time it was of men that they've identified as persons of interest related to the parking garage attack. So a month before she was actually abducted out of Wasaga Beach, she was attacked in the parking garage of her Richmond Hill apartment. And they believe that these men have information about the attack because they had rented vehicles around the same time. Okay. And they're not saying that they are like suspects, but they think that they might have some information. So they released photos of these people. So yeah, again, on Instagram, I'll post photos of the suspects, of the persons of interest, maybe some blurbs from the article, just so you guys can look at them too. And then I wanted to remind everyone that if you have information, no piece of information is too small. Like
Details
anything
matter.
Can be helpful. Like, and maybe you don't even know it, or you're like, I don't really know if this is worth mentioning. Like, who cares? It doesn't hurt to just say something. Mm-hmm. If you have anything, contact the OPP directly, or there's a dedicated tip line, which is 1-833-728-3415. And remember, there is a $100,000 reward. It's a joint reward between the OPP and the York Regional Police. So, I mean, anything that will lead to the whereabouts of Elnaz.
Mm-hmm. Help bring her home.
Yeah, exactly. Bring Elnaz home. So, yeah, I know that sometimes you'll ask me, Paige, about like any updates with Elnaz. Mm-hmm. So that is the most recent one that came out on the Thursday.
Well, thank you for updating us.
And yeah, it's just nice to have. I mean, obviously it was nice when the composite sketches came out, but it was didn't
have any information up until then, and now we're kind of getting a little bit more.
Actual photos of the 3 individuals they think were involved in the abduction. Some photos of some dudes that they think might have seen or known something. Not suspects, they're just saying persons of interest. So yeah, we're slowly getting somewhere. And you know that obviously the OPP has like way more information in the background, and this is just what they're like methodically picking and choosing to release.
Yeah.
So again, doesn't even matter if you are like, this could be pointless. Like, just say something. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, they can always look into it and check it. And what if it does lead to something that finds her? So give them a call, people.
Yeah, you could get $100,000.
Well, that's incentive enough.
Okay. So yeah, just wanted to give that update. Okay, so Paige, the last time that you were on the show, it was before Christmas.
Yep, just before.
So you told us all about Grilla and her little wee Yule lads.
Yep.
And I have a feeling that today, we're not going to be talking about swiping sausages or sniffing doors.
Or meat hooks.
Or candle
swiper.
So I've closed my laptop now. I've turning the reins over to you.
All official.
And thank you, Dyson. And so tell me and the people what we're doing today. I'm so excited. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, wait, I gotta get comfy. I got my wine. Okay, let's do this.
You settled? For a story?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is our February episode, right? And so Valentine's Day just passed. Did you guys celebrate?
Yeah, we did.
What did you guys do? Fucked like everyone else. Yep. Okay.
And I made dinner. I made a delicious chicken Alfredo pasta and garlic bread.
Ooh, yummy.
And he got me chocolate, of course, Laura Secord chocolate.
Ooh, nice chocolate.
And a set of an opal necklace and earrings, matching earrings.
Oh, cute. The necklace is very cute. I like it.
And I was very surprised by the jewelry because it's spot on who I am, and opal is my favorite. And so when I was opening it, well, actually, before he even gave it to me, the necklace and earrings come in a little box. And so before he even handed it to me, he's like, I need to be very clear. This is not a ring.
Good. Good on you.
When you, honestly, when you are handed that box, it looks like you're going to open up a ring.
You're a little scared there for a second.
I was scared a little bit. Yeah. When he's like, I just want to be clear. It's not what you think. It's not a ring like you think. Like, don't think that. And I was like, what is it?
And then you were pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, a set of opal earrings and a necklace, and it's beautiful, and I haven't taken the necklace off.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And yeah, so we ate dinner, and we didn't do anything
Had
else.
a great night. Well,
my mom and dad are listening like, whoop.
You know what? That's life. That is life.
What do you want? It's Valentine's Day.
Yeah. It's that one day a year that you show love for someone or someone's.
Yeah.
Depending, I guess, if you're being sneaky or open. Doesn't matter.
Oh, I thought you meant like Galentine's.
Or sure, Galentine's. Why not? I celebrate what you want on that day. And it's like all about all the love that you show that person on that day is supposed to last you the rest of the year, right?
Yeah.
The celebration of romance and appreciation for your partner, how you would do anything for them, get them flowers, some chocolates, have a nice dinner. Maybe that's not your style and you'd rather go paintballing or a comedy show.
True.
Right?
I actually know people that do comedy shows.
Why
instead.
not? Do what you love,
That's
right?
like their favorite little outing date night thing to do.
Yeah, you can do whatever makes you happy. You don't have to do the stereotypical go get a dinner in a busy restaurant.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like candlelit pasta.
Yeah. So either way, it's a day to celebrate the truest forms of love, the kind of love where you think you found your soulmate, the kind of love heroes risk their lives for, the kind of love that you die for.
Uh-oh.
And who's there to reap the souls but the Grim Reaper?
Are you kidding me?
No, we're doing the Grim Reaper today.
Wow. I'm okay. Here we go. I'm
You're settling in.
I'm fucking excited. The Grim Reaper.
Are you? Was that anything that you thought I might do?
No, I haven't. No, I would never have guessed the Grim Reaper.
No.
I mean, obviously, sometimes I think I wonder what she'll do. And for this week, I just was like, I bet she'll do like some sort of like weird little cryptid that I've never heard of. So I was way wrong.
I decided to go the complete opposite way.
And no, I never would have guessed Grim Reaper, but I'm very excited.
But it's always entangled in love. Like you have like Romeo and Juliet, right? Like that love that you die for each other.
Yep.
There's a bunch of movies that have that. You've got like say Tony Stark in the world. He just loves the world so much. Hopefully that's the
die for this world. The Grim Reaper is waiting there like, go ahead. Die.
Do it. Snap your fingers.
I'll come and get ya, or
I'll
whatever.
reap ya.
The Grim Reap ya. I'll reap ya.
I'll reap ya.
Gotta be careful. Don't switch around some of those vowels.
Oh shit.
Okay, let's do this. The Grim Reaper.
The Grim Reaper. So obviously, death itself, sometimes called the Angel of Death, also called the Black Death as well. So it has a couple of different names, right?
Okay.
And the personifications of death existed long before any mention of the Grim Reaper. So in certain cultures, death is personified as female, such as French, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. In Slavic mythology, they have the goddess Marzana,
okay,
who is associated with winter's death and rebirth. Poland's Grim Reaper appears to be in a white robe instead of the more well-known black robe. And there's also Santa Morte, which means Lady of Holy Death, and is also referred to as Lady of the Dead, Lady of Shadows, Lady of the Night, and is usually depicted as a skeleton dressed in a robe carrying a scythe and globe.
So always at least some sort of robe is pretty common theme here.
Yeah, the Grim Reaper usually is depicted with a robe.
The idea of a white robe creeps me out, though, because if you see white, you think, like, holy, sterile, like, very clean,
Pure.
usually something pure and good, and that it's potentially the freaking angel of death
Coming for you.
all robed in white, and you're like, no.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
so
who's to
creepy.
trust it? Like, you always know the black, right?
Mhm.
And black symbolizes a lot of death in cultures.
Death,
but...
mourning, all that, so yeah.
Mhm.
Ooh, interesting. Also, that here that it could be a woman, or, like, personified as a woman is, like, interesting.
Yeah, there's also Hel, the goddess of death and the daughter of Loki, and she comes from Norse mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd see, I don't know if it's Hel or Hela that's in Thor Ragnarok. I don't know if that's the same one or not. But I believe it is.
I've never seen it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Anyways, there's also Anubis, which is the Egyptian god of the underworld.
Oh, I know all about Anubis.
Yeah, he's got the head of a jackal
Yeah.
and watches over proper burial and judgment in the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
And the Jewish refer to the Grim Reaper as like the angel of death. That's their kind of term for it. And the Japanese have the Shinigami? Shinigami?
Okay.
Gods of death and the underworld. And it's relatively new to mythology and is only really a few centuries old. But basically, they're soul rippers, and they don't abduct souls when it's their time, but they invite them into the afterlife that awaits them and try and get them to come voluntarily.
Okay, like a vampire. We invite you in.
But let me rip your throat out.
That's cool though.
Yeah, so it's nice to have a switch where it's not coming for you, but inviting you in.
Yeah, rather like, hey,
More peaceful.
You can sit with us if you want.
Yeah, you want to come this way?
There's an open invite.
You don't need to haunt those people. Come into the afterlife. It's fine.
Look, we're nice guys.
We're nice. It's a great time here. We're playing ping pong. We're, having some brewskis. We're great.
Played ping pong, some brewskis. Come on.
It's a party. There's also Maman Beget, which is the Haitian and voodoo death god who resides over cemeteries, death, healing, women, fertility, and motherhood.
Some of those things sound disjointed, but okay.
Yeah, you would find it in Haiti, and then you'd also kind of find it in New Orleans as well.
Oh, I want to go to New Orleans so bad.
It would be so freaking cool to do that.
Let's plan a trip.
Let's do it. I'm
Okay,
down.
Dyson, you want to go to New Orleans? New Orleans?
New Orleans?
Sure. Can we go fuck around with some voodoo stuff?
Yeah.
Can I take it home with me?
No. Oh.
No, we got to cleanse ourselves before we come home.
I either get to take it home with me. We go for a nice romantic walk in the Louisiana swamp.
All the three of us, so nice.
Where I obviously find some sort of cool effigy that I then get to pick up and bring home with me. Or we go to a shaman's hut. Me and her make a blood oath.
Oh, this escalated so fast.
And then I get to have a joint seance with her with a Ouija board.
No.
But it's a blood oath, so we also to start it, you have to cut your hand, and then you have to bind the circle together with the Ouija board, and then you have to look through the little planchette thing. I don't know. Planchette thing. And you have to say, you can't get me, voodoo man. And then you spin around 3 times, clap your hands, and then you say, or you take my soul. And then I either get to do that, or it's the
taking the item home.
Why did I ever pass the microphone over to you?
So you go do what you want. I'm coming home on a different flight.
Well, I'm living with you then. If he's bringing creepy voodoo shit into this part, I won't even let him bring a Ouija board in.
He'll be fine.
You want the first option over the second?
The first option is fine because then Paige can be there and we just hold hands and walk through a swamp.
Yeah, romantically, obviously.
But I get to bring the effigy. I pick it up. Didn't work out for...
You're still going on a flight by yourself. I am not going on that flight.
You know what the thing here is that Dyson just wants to say effigy.
It is a fun word. It's a great word. Effigy.
So, yeah, Dyson, that trip will happen in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Winking at
Great
Paige. Paige will go later.
Okay.
We'll send him to New Orleans on his own.
Maybe we'll just send him across the country.
We're sending him to New Orleans. We just drop him in Utah somewhere random.
I wouldn't know the difference.
He wouldn't.
Send him to Orleans in the UK.
Oh my God, yeah.
Whoops. That's
What?
a really long flight.
We sent you somewhere.
Yeah, you're going to have fun. We'll see you in a couple weeks. It's fine.
Oh, Dyson.
Okay. So, back into it. So, ancient Greeks saw death. The god Thanatos.
Thanatos. Depends where you put the emphasis.
Yeah.
Thanatos.
And they saw him as a bearded and winged man, born of the goddess of the night, Nyx, son to Erebus, the god of darkness, and twin brother to Hypnos, the god of sleep. So he is depicted as a young man flying while carrying a sword. And there's also Charon, which is the ferryman that guides souls from Earth to the underworld in Greek mythology as well. And so funerary vases from ancient Greece in the 5th and 4th century are decorated with painted scenes of Chiron and receiving like the dead on his boat.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And it kind of has like notes of the Japanese culture where it's like we're inviting you in and Charon is like guiding you, leading you.
Yeah, he is the one that brings you into the underworld.
That's cool.
And Chiron is also known as, shown as being surly and a dirty old man carrying a pole in one hand and ushering the dead aboard his boat with the other.
Okay, I first of all didn't picture it that way, but now that I'm thinking about Disney's Hercules, I can see that because they're like in a weird boat and there is the big like cane, ushering you down like the whatever river that is, maybe like River Styx. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is the River Styx. Yeah.
So cool, but I didn't picture that originally, but that is great.
I would think that I would kind of picture him as like gaunt, as kind of like almost dead like, because he is the one that is like kind of between worlds, right?
I know, which makes sense. But I guess just because it's like Greek mythology and you're thinking of like gods and goddesses, I just pictured for like someone just so masculine and like brawny and handsome or something.
Well, they're supposed to be that way, right? They're supposed to be like unstoppable, unbeatable, like the god of whatever.
But then it's like, of course, like look at your job, dude. You're not going to be.
Well, he's actually not a god.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He's not, but the god of death is. But Chiron is just the ferryman.
That's true. It's the Greek, man. As soon as you talk anything ancient Greek, I'm like, it's probably a brawny man.
It's probably a brawny man. Half naked.
Yeah.
Right? So some versions of the Grim Reaper describe him as a spiritual guide for souls who have departed from the mortal world, and others refer to him as an entity of death who can kill people through touch or will.
Oh.
And most notably, the Grim Reaper appears to be like a tall, skeletal figure dressed in the black hooded robe. Sometimes you can see the face beneath the hood, and others it's just depicted as like kind of a dark void.
Yeah, like just a black hole.
Yeah.
That's how I usually picture it.
Faceless.
That's also what death looks like in RuneScape.
It's a lot of depictions like that. So, I mean, even in the newest movie, Spirited, by Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds, Tracy Morgan plays the voice of death, or like the third ghost of Christmas past. No, future. Ghost of Christmas Future, and he's the Grim Reaper and is faceless. So
wow, I haven't seen that movie. I actually didn't even hear about it.
It's funny. Anyways, and so he's commonly known to also carry a scythe or an hourglass. And in some cases, the entity is described as mute or limited verbally.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
They don't really say very much.
That adds to the creepiness. Very ominous. You're
only there for one reason, right? Doesn't need to explain anything. As soon as you see him, you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah.
Unless you're in The Sims and you try to duel them for your life.
I love how both of us are referencing video games as their like standard of what the Grim Reaper is or death is. I'm like, that's what he looks like in RuneScape. You die in the wilderness, you know, you're brave, you go in the wilderness. Players attack you, you die. You gotta make it back quick to your headstone so that Grim Reaper will give you back your shit.
This is the modern Grim Reaper. This is it. This is what we're talking about, right? You see them everywhere. But why? Where did it come from? Well, I'm here to tell you.
And I love it.
And here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So, during the 12th and the 13th century, Europe's population would grow from about 1 million in 1085 to about 6 or 7 million at the start of the 1300s.
Whoa.
There was a huge growth in population there.
That's what we call a boom.
Yeah, there was a boom. And the rest of the continents combined were elevated to about 70 to 100 million people.
In the same span
Yeah.
of time? Holy fucking shit.
Everything. They had really good crop years. They had really good weather and everything. Lots of prosperity. They were starting to build more agricultural lands and stuff like that. So they were
Celebrating Valentine's Day, am I right?
every day, eh? You need those kids to help work the fields. And so at the beginning of the 14th century, in the 1300s was known as the Little Ice Age. And so the Baltic Sea, that is centered between the present-day Sweden, Finland, Russia, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Germany, and Denmark, froze over twice in 1303 and 1306 to 1307. So it froze over like completely, and it was like for a while.
Yeah.
So this caused a widespread drop in global temperatures, which caused cold weather and many heavy rainfalls through Europe in 1315. And this would lead to the crops rotting, which bred diseases that caused the cattle and the sheep numbers to fall drastically, as much as by 80%.
Oh my God, that is an actual nightmare.
Yep. And all your crops were dying too.
Yeah.
So you couldn't even feed anything off of that. And it really started to take effect in the spring of 1315 until the fall of 1317. But
that's a long time.
Yeah, but most people wouldn't recover until 1322.
I mean, that makes sense. You essentially had like a poisoned crop. Like you're going to have to totally start over.
All by hand.
Exactly.
And all your cattle that you
I was
used?
going to say, all by hand, because usually you have a mule of some sort. They probably fucking died.
Yep, probably all gone.
You gotta
Your
wait for
kids
it to grow
probably
up.
Died from famine, right? So
Whoa, that's actually really scary.
it is, yeah. And this all led to a drastic increase in crime, disease, mass death, cannibalism, and infanticide.
Ew.
Yeah, so
As if it couldn't get worse than cannibalism, then you get infanticide.
Yep. And so that meaning, for the people that don't know, is that you purposefully kill a child due to it being either unwanted or not wanting or having the resources to waste on this child. So there were even reports of the poor feeding on hanged bodies that they had taken down in Poland.
My jaw is
Cannibalism.
dropped. I'm like, oh my God.
People were hungry.
I know.
And
but-
it's the poorest of the poor that have to do this because they can't feed themselves.
Exactly. It's just,
There's no way.
that just totally snowballed into like, hey, you thought it was bad? Well, just you wait. People
Yeah.
are killing babies they thought were burdens and eating each other.
Yep, exactly.
Whoa.
And the average life expectancy during this time was 29 to 30 years old. And it is estimated that about 10 to 25% of the population died, which is estimated about 1 million people.
That's what I was just going to ask. I was like, how many people is that? Because that seems like a lot of people.
Yeah, it is a lot of people.
And this is only over the course of a few years, really.
Yeah, this is over like 2 years of the weather and stuff like that being affected through the crops. And then like being able to actually get the crops to grow took like another 5 years.
Good Lord.
Yeah. And then also, as Europe recovered from the Great Famine, King Edward III of England made a play for the French throne. So the reason this started was because in 1328, King Charles IV of France died without a male heir. And 12 years before his death, Salic law had been recognized, which ruled against having a woman succeed the throne.
Oh, of course.
And Charles IV had only 2 surviving daughters with his last wife. Their names were Mary and Blanche. And with his third wife, who, when they were 1 year old, when he died, Mary was 1, and Blanche was not born until after his death.
Okay.
And upon learning that Blanche was a girl, the throne of France went to Philip VI, who was his cousin by his father's brother.
Okay.
And King Edward III disputed that the law states that it cannot be succeeded by a woman, it does not say that it can't be succeeded through a woman and a female line.
Oh.
So King Edward III was Charles's nephew through his sister Isabella and grandson to the previous king, King Philip VI.
Yes.
So Isabella, upon Charles's death, attempted to claim the throne of France on behalf of Edward, but French nobles disputed this and ultimately decided that she had no authority to claim such a thing and that they would rather have a native-born Frenchman wear the crown rather than someone who had such strong ties to England, because he grew up in England. He was born in England.
Okay.
And then during the war, both England and France set a high tax for the public to fund their wars, of course. And this is after the people of both countries had witnessed decades of warfare, destruction of cities, towns, and villages, an economic decline, particularly hitting the poorest the hardest.
Well, that makes sense. Like you're saying, it was this terrible, widespread famine where people are just resorting to crime and murder and cannibalism.
Yeah.
And these are the people that, of course, are affected the most.
Yeah, and that have to pay the highest taxes, right?
That's so annoying.
Yeah. England's population demonstrated their revolt in 1381, and it is called the Peasants' Revolt due to the high taxes, political and socio-economic tensions, and an unstable leadership of England.
All fair points.
Because particularly during this time, King Richard II was King of England.
Okay.
Who was 14 at this time and was crowned king at 10 years old.
Good lord. He was a baby man.
Yeah, he was a baby, and he didn't really care. he was a baby. He was a child.
I know, yeah.
But he's running a kingdom. Like, it's crazy.
No.
And he really didn't care about the war, and instead just gave special treatment to his friends.
Okay, he's 10. He probably, 14, I guess, at this point.
At this point, yeah.
He doesn't fucking understand it. Of course he doesn't care about the war.
No, it was started by someone else.
He barely has concept of himself, let alone things outside of himself. He's like just having a party with his friends.
Yeah, exactly. He's having fun with his friends, and that upset many nobles within England.
It's upsetting me.
Reasons.
I'm not even a noble.
And then France also had a revolt in Rouen, which, because there was a new sales tax on salt, aid, so people who worked to transport goods, and customs duty. And there were tax farmers who had been appointed to collect debts that were owing.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
People loved them.
Yeah. Well, an angry mob from mainly the poorest section of the city targeted the wealthy, counselors of the town, churches, and the tax farmers.
Oh, true. Churches, of course, because they would probably just get away scot-free with everything.
Yep, and then so they went after them too, so.
Yeah.
And then a few people died, but mainly went about, like, looting major businesses and even looting public records containing information about, like, rent, lawsuits, debts, or any other types of rights given unfairly, which were then subsequently destroyed.
I mean, honestly, it
Smart.
is all for the time, especially because, like, I believe this is also around the time of, like, Dark Ages, where, like, churches are coming in, sweeping in, erasing all kinds of history. So why not get a rebellion of people coming in? And they're like, oh, cool, we'll do it too.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot going on, and a lot of the Christian churches did too. A lot of Jews during this time as well.
Sad, but not shocking.
No, not really shocking. So this revolt lasted 3 days, and a few days later, a second revolt happened in Paris, where a gathering of about 500 men attacked the tax farmers and collection booths. And then they started looking for weapons, and even went as far as to loot churches, businesses, the wealthy, and government buildings.
Wow, so they were just out there wilding on anyone.
Out for blood.
Yeah.
And coming across the government officials, nobles, collectors, or business owners, they would be beaten to death.
Oh, God. What kind of weapons would they have?
I guess, probably any type of farm equipment.
Yeah, that's what I was like picturing, like a pitchfork and like this classic pitchfork, axe or something.
If you were like some sort of blacksmith, all your tools,
forging equipment.
Yeah.
Ooh, here's the wrong place, wrong time.
A rock.
Like, could go walk my dog. They're like,
They beat you to death in the street. Yeah.
Woof.
And then they would make their way to a section of the city where a large number of Jews were residing and would also attack them, killing hundreds of Jews and forcibly baptizing their children.
Oh, Lord.
I know.
Oh, God.
That's like the worst part, I think, personally.
Well, I mean, you're just immediately already, you're like, great, Jews can't wait to just ruin your life because we're sick. Second of all, it's a totally different religion. What is the biggest way to spit in your face? Oh, impose this on your children.
Yeah.
That's nightmarish.
Well, it's exactly what the U.S. and the Canadian government and the churches did to all the indigenous people in the world.
Great analogy. Also incredibly devastating.
It is. I'm so sorry for everyone who's Native American, indigenous
peoples, man. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, you'll get your land back eventually.
There are some places, actually, we were watching a show on Paramount Plus. What's the show called, Dyson? Never Seen Again. It's about people who've disappeared. And they were talking about an area right on like the border of Quebec and Ontario. I believe it is Anishinaabe people. Is that what it was, Dyson? Anishinaabe?
I think so.
And the land they live on there, their reserves, is completely theirs. It's owned completely by them. They are like bringing in so much more aspects of like their culture. People left, right, and center are like speaking the language, Anishinaabe language, and like it's their land.
That's amazing.
And I was like, I just didn't know. I just didn't know that they had their own land in some places, especially in Canada, where it's like, nope, ours. Yeah. Completely ours, our language, our rules, teachings, everything.
Well, I know that everywhere that they have their the reserves, they're trying to make sure that it's theirs and that they're getting their land back. Especially, I've been hearing about obviously in BC and stuff like that, with the mounted police coming in.
There's just so many
illegally,
of course, illegally. There's just so many reserves where even though it's like. Even like Six Nations, for example, which is like one of the biggest reserves in Canada. It's like right next door to us where we are right now.
Just south of us.
It's a reserve for Indigenous people, but it's not like it's totally their land.
No.
So I just thought that was really cool. And I was watching this documentary and learning like, oh shit, like that's actually like their space, their land. That is awesome. Like, of course it should be that way. But yeah, diatribe over.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just want to like make a side note to that of something that I just remembered.
Yeah.
I believe it's in Japan. There was this guy who had some land and I think he planted the seed of a tree and watched the tree grow. And then he wanted to keep the tree there, so he entitled the land surrounding the tree to the tree so that the tree had the land of itself. And so the government and the city couldn't knock it down because it legally had its own space and it had its own protection.
Oh my God.
And then at some point that tree was knocked down in a storm. So the people of the city decided to take a seed from that tree and plant a new one. So it inherited, because it was technically the parent of this new tree, it inherited the land.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
Right? Isn't that cool?
That is amazing.
Land owning itself, which it always should have done and always should be.
That guy was like, you don't fucking touch my tree. I'll get you. In a little bit of a little loophole here. Oh, the tree that you want to cut down? Well, guess what? It's its own entity now and it owns the land.
Yeah.
So, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. I think you like paid like a dollar to it or whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, like that's freaking smart.
That's fascinating.
Turning the tides a little bit.
Man, so I love learning new things.
Right? Exactly. Fun facts, eh?
Keep teaching me stuff that's new. Let's go.
Okay, well, the King of France would come into Paris a few days later to negotiate, but ultimately the king refused to meet their demands. And this caused more riots to spread in other cities until the king repealed the taxes and offered a pardon to them.
The 14-year-old?
No, the King of France.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was like, what? The 14-year-old was deciding who gets a pardon?
No, this would be, I believe it's John at this time.
Okay, sorry. Yes.
No, that's okay.
Gotta make sure I'm following.
Yeah, you're following. And then, after all this, both kingdoms were on financial collapse, and so they created a truce which lasted 13 long years, which was the longest period of peace during the war.
I mean, it doesn't even seem that long, but
No, it doesn't.
I guess it would be in a time where everyone's just fucking guns blazing out there.
Well, for 100 years, at that point, they don't know, but it's going to be 100 years long.
Oh!
Yeah, over 100 years. It's called the 100-Year War.
Oh, sorry. I was still fixated on 14 years of peace.
13, yes. 13 years
13 years of peace.
Yeah. But then the truce broke.
I'm just like scatterbrained.
You've been drinking some wine.
Also, yeah, I've been drinking some wine, but also Dyson got my attention.
That's true. He distracted you.
And he did distract me, and Dyson, what did you distract me with?
I was just browsing through our Podbean stats and stuff, and then I saw that we were featured on Podbean on their all category. Like their of all the podcasts that they have, we were featured.
Yeah, show me.
There we are.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hello, Podbean listeners. How you doing?
You're second in the list. That is amazing. I'm so happy for you guys.
Yeah, I'm glad I sent that email to them.
Yeah. Occasionally, but I'm here.
Okay, sorry. I was distracted because he showed me that screen, and then after that, I was just daydreaming, and I apologize.
That's
so
okay.
I was like, I have to say why I am recounting details wrong. That's because we're featured on Podbean.
And that's very exciting to learn.
It's very exciting. And earlier this week, Dyson had been like, hey, I don't know what happened. We all of a sudden got a huge boom of like people that are just following us on Podbeam.
Really?
Podbeam? No. Beam.
Remember when I told you? It was from remember when I told you like, oh, I'm gonna send this email and see if like Podbean wants to feature us because they were like, hey, you guys doing something cool? Like, send us an email and maybe we'll put you on the featured section. And I was like, it's a long shot, right? And they didn't even tell us they did it. They just did it. And then all of a sudden we started getting a bunch of followers. So thank you guys. That's
awesome.
Fucking dope.
And welcome.
We're finding out now on the podcast, so we're excited about it. Anyway.
We're doing it live.
It's a little chaotic in here. What do you want from us? We're just people.
We're having fun.
And welcome all new people.
Yes, welcome.
What about the Grim Reaper? Paige, I feel like all I do is interrupt you and ruin your flow.
So rude. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
You want to know about the truce?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So the truce then broke in 1402 after the new King Henry IV, who took the throne from Richard in England, and attempted some politically and aggressive moves against France.
Well, I mean, if you have the throne, why not?
Yeah, he starved Richard and killed him, so.
That is an awful way to die.
Yeah. In a tower, I believe.
Oh, okay, you didn't even have to say that. I literally just pictured like this tower where he was isolated at the top.
Everyone dies in the tower in the medieval ages.
He probably took his clothes too, so he was miserable and uncomfortable and cold in that tower.
Died of frostbite, I'm sure.
Starvation.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare.
I know,
The body eats itself.
Yeah.
Awful.
It is awful.
That's sick. Medieval times, man.
Yeah. And then after this, the war would continue for another 5 decades before France would finally take back the lands England attempted to steal. Yeah. Crazy, right? All for nothing.
All for nothing. And then like you can't help but think about like just civilians, just people that have to live in on this land and in this area and just suffering because there's just some weird fucking dispute going on for like what reason though?
Petty reasons
and like power tripping.
Prideful reasons,
overthrowing a throne to just have it. And why?
That's what all wars are though. It's these men who decide that they want something that someone else has, gets mad and throws a temper tantrum over it, and then causes a bunch of people to die of their own people, and other people.
Yeah,
for no reason.
The casualties are always people who are just like, hi, I'm just trying to live.
Yeah, they just told me, they forced me here, and now I'm dying for this, so.
Lord.
Anyways, so.
Hey, it's all part of the history.
Yeah, and 20 years into this war brings about the worst pandemic in human history, the Black Plague.
I was just gonna say, oh my god, are you talking about the Black Plague right now?
Yeah, talking about the Black Plague. So while this war is going on, while this economic disaster, high taxes, diseases running rampant, people dying, there's also a plague going on.
It makes sense, though.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be called the Black Death until later, and it was mainly referred to as the pestilence or great mortality.
Well, that also makes sense.
Also makes sense. Yeah.
It's like calling it the Cold War. They probably didn't call it the Cold War during the Cold War.
No, they just called it war.
Like, we're probably in war, right? I think so.
Almost.
Is this some sort of nuclear race? I'm not sure. Okay.
Don't know. Yeah. And like, while diseases were normally spreading to humans through like rats and fleas, this new plague evolved into an airborne disease that was easily spreadable between people.
Okay, I did not know that. I knew it was usually rats, little rodents, but I didn't know it was airborne.
This was the first time it switched to airborne.
Okay, man, I'm kind of happy that we didn't have to live in this time.
I know. You're going to wait till you hear how bad it was. Holy shit.
Oh, I'm scared.
Yeah. It's an estimated that a total of 30 to 60% of European population and 1/3 of the Middle Eastern population perished.
That is astronomical.
Yeah. And it was reported that Germany suffered a 40% loss. Provence in southeast France lost 50% of its population, and Italy 70%.
70?
Yeah. And this caused the death of 25 million people worldwide. And peak mortality rates hit from 1347 until 1351.
Also, just think about the time period. Like, these are definitely estimated numbers. There's no way there was like a solid concrete way to record all of this. And like, there could be people that fell through the cracks.
Oh, yeah. This is like low numbers. I'm
Yeah.
sure if they counted everyone, it would be much, much higher.
Good Lord. I'm still trying to Italy, 70%.
70% of the population.
70%.
Yep. 40, 50, and 70.
Good Lord.
And 25 million people worldwide.
That's so many people.
I know, it's a lot of people. And so many people died so rapidly that bodies were piling up in the streets and would be left to rot as there were too many to be buried fast enough.
And then that's just contributing to disease for sure.
And the trauma of seeing just piles of dead people in the street. You might be like, that's my neighbor.
Yeah.
That's the kid I babysat last week.
I was just going to say, or like kids are probably super
That's my mom.
susceptible. And oh my God. And it's in areas, like, especially if you think of areas in Europe that have like always been, or for like the longest time have been populated, like London or something like that. Just the space to bury people is already limited.
Yeah. And the streets are narrow on top of that. And people are just squished together.
Oh,
Yeah.
ew. Ew, the smell. Imagine the smell. Ew.
I know. It would stink. And like sanitation down there, nothing.
I mean,
disgusting.
At this point in your story, even for like the next 200 years, people are still throwing shit out a window.
Yeah, in buckets. Don't watch where you're walking. And often, because there were so many funerals, many of the normally honored traditions and customs were just rushed or cut down. So if you had your tradition, probably just skipping through it.
Ugh. And back then, at this point, what else do you have really? Except your faith?
Yeah, except for just try to be healthy and not catch it.
Good Lord.
And many of the cemeteries would fill up, obviously. The churches trained to perform last ceremonies or even find a final resting place. And in this instance, they would use plague pits or mass graves to dispose or lay to rest the bodies of the deceased.
This just keeps getting more and more macabre.
Plague pits, like...
As soon as you said plague pits, the first thing I thought of was just a crater in the earth where you're just tossed in.
Just imagine, like, someone has to dig that out.
And
you have no cattle to help you. You are probably the sick people that they're probably trying to get bury their own graves.
True, and you're not even finished digging the hole, and they're just launching bodies in, and then you're probably getting sick because they're just throwing.
Probably just die right into it.
And then you're like, okay, on top of all of this, it's like fucking famine out here, basically.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm weak.
Yeah,
There's no clean
can't
water.
last. Life expectancy during the plague was 17 years old.
Good. Whoa.
17.
Just a little baby man.
If you made it to that.
Exactly, that's it.
And how, like, you're barely old enough to keep the population going. Like, that's crazy.
Like, I'm 17, I got no game yet. What do you want from me?
You're not even an adult yet. Can't even buy booze in Canada yet. Can't even buy a lottery ticket yet.
No.
But anyways, so historian Barbara W. Tushman, author of A Distant Mirror, The Calamitous 14th Century, looks at what the effects of the 14th century, mainly the Black Death, had on society. And she looks at, quote, comparing the aftermaths of the Black Death and World War I, James Westfall Thompson found all the same complaints: economic chaos, social unrest, high prices, profiteering, deprived morals, lack of production, industrial indolence, frantic gaiety, wild expenditure, luxury, debauchery, social and religious hysteria, greed, avarice, maladministration, decay of manners. History never repeats itself, said Voltaire. Man always does. End quote.
Which is the same thing.
Well, I mean, if, like, I guess history, like, if you look at, like, nature, it might have a similar pattern, but I don't think it would ever, like, truly repeat itself. I think it would have highs and lows.
I understand the point he's making completely.
It's a good thing to think about.
Especially what he listed is pretty much all man-made problems.
Yep, exactly.
So, yeah, it is man that is repeating itself, but I mean, at this point, it's man that is making history, really.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a conundrum there, but
it's man that only cares about history.
It's, yeah.
Nothing else cares about history.
Wow. That's such a good point, too, because even as you're listing things off, I'm like, that's kind of still a problem. Oh, that's kind of still a problem. Well,
you look at the pandemic we just went through.
Yeah.
All the same things.
Yeah.
All the same things.
Oh, that's spooky. And this is for 1400s.
Yeah. Or 1300s.
Oh, yeah. Okay. 14th century.
14th. Yeah, I know. It's so confusing. Yeah.
Okay.
14th century, 1300s.
Great point. Yeah, you're right. You're right, sir. It is man.
It is man.
It is man.
It causes problems.
Itself.
Yeah, and just for the people that don't know, James Westphal Thompson was also an American historian that specialized in medieval and early modern European history, and Voltaire was a famous French writer and philosopher during the 16 and 1700s.
I've heard the name Voltaire.
Yes. And it was during this time that the divide between the rich and the poor grew bigger and, quote, there have been acts of violence because the poor will not suffer this, but know not how to obtain their right except by rising and seizing it themselves. They formed associations to refuse to work for so low a price as formerly, but they will rise the price of their own authority, end quote.
What else can you do? Right?
And it's exactly what we're seeing again this day and age. I mean, you're looking at all the strikes that are happening in the UK. You're looking at the strikes that are happening all around the world and stuff. And whether it's for your women's rights or for pay or for healthcare or for education.
You name it.
Everything.
Honestly, you name it.
Wow. Everything. So it's very reflective on like what previously happened and it coming back around and how exploited we are as poor people.
Yes.
I would say I'm poor, but
we are definitely poor people.
We're in the generation of poor.
What are we going to do? What are we...
Sex work, obviously.
I can sell pictures of my feet. Anyone need a sugar baby? I'll be that.
Let me be your sugar baby.
That's how we're going to make money these days.
No, this is the podcast. This is how we're going to make money.
I mean, we are featured on Podbean.
Oh. So, there's also another quote by Tishman, and it says, quote, the peasants too felt oppressed by the rich and was forever struggling against the Lord's effort to grasp by one means or another more of the peasant's product or more of his services. Cases in manor courts going back to 1250 show peasants in consecrated deliberation refusal to plow the Lord's fields, thresh his grain, turn his hay, or grind at his mill. Persisting year after year, despite fines and punishment, they denied bondage, disposal of land without consent, joined in bands, and assaulted the bailiff or to rescue a fellow peasant from the stocks, end quote. So people banded together, and they lasted, and they were firm in their stance. They did not give up.
Yeah, because even if your punishment is like, oh, well, we're going to fine you then because you didn't plow this fucking field, it's like, cool, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's me not paying you. Yeah. So sure, you're going to send some guy to come and get me? Great. I have a whole fucking army behind me of people who are also protesting all of this. So like, sure, come for me because I got a fucking gang behind me.
You're trying to take something I don't have?
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to take? You got nothing else.
For real. Like, I can't even plow your field because we're in a fucking famine here and my mule's dead.
And the Black Plague. Got the plague, leave me alone.
I keep saying famine as an umbrella term, but yeah, like, what else do these people have?
I know. They got nothing left, and so they are fighting for everything, right?
Yeah.
And so we're going to kind of move into the legend of the 3 living and the 3 dead. which was first thought to be introduced in France by poet Baudouin de Caude, who was active from 1240 to 1280. And part of his poem reads, quote, "You will be as we are, behold yourselves betimes in us. Power, honor, riches are nothing at the hour of death, only good works count," end quote. So it was just kind of to remind you that, you know, what you do kind of matters and you should focus on the right things.
Yeah, saying good works is kind of a catch-all for basically being decent.
Yeah.
Be a decent person.
Decent,
think
kind
outside
person.
yourself and think of your fellow man.
Exactly. And Condé's poem was re-illustrated in 1310 by the Psalter of Robert de Lis manuscripts, as well as the Psalter Bon of Luxembourg. And a Psalter is a type of prayer book, or also known as a book of hours.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in the Robert de Lisle, there is an illustration followed by the moral story of the 3 living and the 3 dead. And the illustration features 2 boxes side by side. In the left box are 3 young noblemen that face to the right, dressed in elegant robes, and their heads adorned in crowns, their hands gloved in white, their feet covered in fine slippers. So they're dressed very nicely.
Yeah.
And the one on the left holds a scepter, and the one on the right has a bird perched upon their left hand as they hold their right to grasp at the center noble, who seems shocked by what they've stumbled upon.
Interesting.
And their faces are shocked, disgusted, and dismayed by what they've seen before them. And in the box to the right are 3 corpses in different states of decay.
Oh my god.
Starting from the middle is the newest corpse. Their head tilted down, eyes closed, still in mourning over their fate. Their head and body covered in cloth, their left hand is clutched to their chest, and the right sits on the shoulder of the corpse to their left. This corpse is slightly more decayed and stands straight facing the nobles. Some of their clothing has covered them, and some of it is decayed and frayed. There are maggots on his stomach, and he holds his arms crossed over his chest. The third skeleton on the far right has no cloth covering him, nor maggots. He stands tall and faces the reader straight on, with a smile on his face and arms at his sides. He welcomes you to your fate.
Ew.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different depictions, but that was like one of the main ones that I found.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I pictured in that right box, is basically a gradient of death and decay.
Exactly.
And that's so creepy though. Just standing there like, look, do you see what's below me right now? This is the worst that it's going to be.
This is your fate. This is what's coming.
Come at me.
Exactly. And above the illustration are some inscriptions which depict the 3 living crying out, quote, "I am afraid. Lo, what I see. Methinks these be devils 3, end quote. And the 3 dead reply, quote, "I was well fair. Such shall you be. For God's love, beware by me," end quote. A little warning there.
Yeah.
And then below the illustration, the poem reads, "The first living king, friends, look what I see. Unless I have gone quite mad, my heart shakes with great fear. See there 3 shades together, how ugly and strange they are, rotten and worm-eaten." The first dead king. The first shade said, "Lord, do not forget because of this bird, nor for our bejeweled robes, that you are not obeying well the laws that Jesus Christ has commanded by his holy will." The second living king. The second said, "I desire, friend, to amend my life. I have overindulged my whims, and my heart is eager to do as much as my soul submits to God, the King of pity." The second dead king. "Gentlemen," said the second shade, "the truth is that the death has made us such as we are, and you will rot as we are now. Until now you were so pure and perfect. However, you will rot before the end." The third living king. The third living, who wrings his hands, said, Why was man made so lowly that he must receive such an end? This was too evident a folly. God would never perpetrate this madness, so brief a joy, and such great pleasures." The third dead king. The third shade says, "Know that I was head of my line, princes, kings, and nobles, royal and rich, rejoicing in my wealth, but now I am so hideous and bare that even the worms disdain me. End quote.
So those were all quotes in relation to the two squares. You have one that has the three men in their riches, essentially, and the right square is the, as I said, the gradient of death.
The three shades, yes.
Yeah, and that was quotes that are basically describing each of the six figures you see.
Yeah, basically, yeah, and the kind of how they're going about what they think of what they're seeing before them and their reactions to everything.
Reactions are very interesting, actually.
Because the one is like, I must have gone mad. Like I can't be seeing this in front of me,
and the shocked expression that is seen.
Exactly. And then the second living king is like, I desire to amend my life. They understand what they must do then. And then the third living king doesn't understand why this could possibly be happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but all three of them
basically, I've lived a very sheltered, privileged life. What the hell? Nothing's ever been said to me that would ever warn me for what this is.
Shouldn't I indulge in the pleasures of the earth? It's like, well, to an extent, of course, not to hurt other people, but
there's a fate fucking waiting for you. Just look Look to your left.
Yeah, and this poem was used to convince people that they must consider their actions in this life and how they affect you in the next. How to fix their behavior now before it's too late and you regret it. And there's much more to this poem that I have not been able to translate, as it's like 4 or 5 pages long.
I mean, I'm so impressed by the picture you painted. So,
and it's like I've seen the pictures of different manuscripts that all have the same depiction of the 3 kings and the 3 dead. And it's all like written in like the most incredible like handwriting, like the old English, like with the script, and it's very cool but illegible.
Well, yeah,
and in French too. So I had to translate it from.
Oh, and in French on top of all of that.
On top of that, yeah. I worked hard for this.
You're doing amazing. I have this. As you talk, I don't know if you can see, I just kind of like
dazed off.
I kind of look towards the ceiling because I'm picturing everything you're saying and like
trying to keep it in track and not.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'll follow along here and I can visualize everything you're saying. So
hopefully everyone else can too. And the versions of Bodin's work have appeared in many more manuscripts, reaching as far as London, Manchester, Turin, Italy, Belgium, and even Austria.
All right, so he's like, "Hey, Europe, what's up?"
Yeah, so the three living and the 3 dead was a very common and well-known concept. And though French depictions often had both literary and illustrated depictions, Italy mainly had examples of iconographic depictions. But some argue that France was not the first to understand that where there is life, there is always death. The 4 Meetings of Buddha is about a prince born in 558 BCE.
Good Lord, that is ancient.
Yes, very old. And he undergoes a spiritual crisis at the age of 28. His life is...
Same.
I mean, yes.
We're both 28 sitting here like, what is life?
Life sucks. So we get it. We're right in his shoes. And his life is full of luxuries, which ours is not.
Okay, well, no.
And the pleasures of whatever he wants, which again, ours is not.
Okay, must be nice, sir.
I know. Can't even get a coffee without thinking about it.
Will my wallet forgive me? Probably not, but this is a damn fine coffee.
But I'm still standing in this line, so I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
And then one day he decides to change his plans for the day and happens to have 4 meetings with 4 different types of people. An elderly person, an ill person, a funeral procession, and a beggar. And it was then that his perception changed and he understood death, becoming aware of life without a body. It was then that he decided to give up all earthly possessions, and this turns him into a soul that seeks to be illuminated and enlightened, becoming Buddha.
Wow, that is fascinating. I never even thought about, well, who was Buddha?
Yeah, and like where Buddha. It really started. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And how things are connected. And then it's believed that this theme migrated through Islam into European Christian ideologies as well.
Most likely.
And so a popular method...
Says me, most likely. Yes.
Come on.
My astute opinion says. Yeah.
And so a popular method of painting in the Middle Ages was fresco. And fresco is a type of mural painting technique where the plaster is applied onto the walls while it's still wet. So people would take dry powdered pigment and lay it into the wet plaster, which becomes a part of the wall rather than just painting on the surface of the wall.
I love that so much, and I fucking love murals. You know a mural that I think of a lot, actually?
Which one?
In the Sanderson Center.
At the ceiling?
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
The three ladies, they're like whatever goddesses.
It's been a really long time since I've been in
and
there.
they're like all playing an instrument, and you have like a weird little goat man off to the side, and it's just this gorgeous mural. It's excuse me, it's a like re-render of what used to be there, but it's so gorgeous.
It is amazing.
It's like huge arched ceiling and this giant mural on there,
and like a huge chandelier too is there in the middle, and it's really, really pretty.
And I never knew that it was essentially the way it's old school murals are created is that it's a part of the wall. Like I just would have assumed you just painted on there, so that's crazy.
Yeah, like Michelangelo, his depiction on the ceiling is also fresco.
That is so cool. Fresco. Okay.
Yes, Fresco. Fresco.
Not to be confused with Fresca, the disgusting sugar-free carbonated drink.
Or Wells Fargo, the bank.
Definitely not that.
Definitely not that. No.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So fun fact.
I'm learning
right?
so much.
That's always my hope when I come here is that everyone learns a little something.
I love learning. It's my favorite pastime.
Well, that's all a podcast is learning something.
You better fucking learn something, or else why are you here?
Just for background noise, we don't appreciate it. Just kidding. We appreciate the listens regardless.
That's when someone was actually listening. Like, hey, call me out.
Oh, they're calling me out right now. So the Atri Cathedral and Abruzzi, Italy?
Yeah, that's fine. That's it.
Features 3 noblemen dressed in fine red robes encountering 2 skeletons, and this was created in 1275. So this was also another depiction of almost the 3 living and the 3 dead, but it was 3 living and 2 dead at this point, and they were skeletons that they came across.
Honestly, this is how you know how much like Christianity has seeped its way into everything, because every time you say like 3 whoever, I'm just picturing 3 wise men.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if 3s are just like the number 3 is a very special number.
Oh, for sure.
Because, like, I mean, I know the number 12 is supposed to be really special because, I mean, we have 12, like the 24 hours split into 2. We also have the 12 months. We have the 12 zodiacs. We have the, like, if you're, I guess, Christian, the 12 apostles, there's a bunch of different things that the number 12 keeps popping up.
Yeah, 3 kind of just seems to be like that magical pairing.
Yeah, divide between the 12 and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, it is a yeah, right, a multiple.
Right? Yeah.
Multiple, maybe.
Sure. Okay. Can you tell that math's not our thing?
It isn't.
It's really
There's
not.
multiple
Sorry,
times on this podcast where math comes in, and I'm like,
You just don't hear the confusion because we pause and make sure you don't hear it.
And we could totally erase all of this to make us seem smarter, but why would we? Because, hi, we're human.
Yeah, exactly. This is real life. And so we're going to kind of move into the triumph of death.
Okay.
And so in Pisa, Italy, another depiction of death holding or using a scythe was created known in the frescoes of Camposanto of Pisa, which is the cemetery in Pisa.
Wow.
And it's near actually the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
I mean, that's obviously the first thing I
don't know
pictured.
how big Pisa is, but
now I'm just trying to picture if there's frescoes in a cemetery. Is it like a mausoleum?
Kinda. It's like, from what I've seen of pictures, it's this big like columns. It's got like walls, and then it's got columns, arched columns on the inside, and the paintings, I believe, are within those hallways. Okay. And in the very center is kind of like a courtyard.
See, and that's what's also cool, is because it's like immediately when you think of a fresco, in this case, you think of a mural, which obviously sounds interior. Yeah. So that's very cool.
But they do paint it on the outside and in cemeteries as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because I believe that
it's like an archway, a path of like archways.
Yeah, it's like from what I've seen, like a big rectangular building, and then there's no roof to it.
And what year is this from?
This was in the 14th century that the painting was done.
Oh my god, is it still there today?
Or like
pieces of it?
Let me get into that.
I'm just like, we can just keep making this like world map of places to go to because that's just so fascinating.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like in a series of paintings that were done by many different artists, range from the 14th century until the 15th century in this place. So there was like a bunch of different murals painted by different people as they went along.
Wow.
And as they built it.
Then it's also just like this cool little time capsule.
It's basically an art gallery.
Yeah.
A permanent art gallery.
Wow.
Yeah. And from around 1336 to 1341, which was about 5 years before the Black Death had begun, Buonoamico Buffalmacchio
All right.
painted the Triumph of Death, which was about 15 meters wide.
Whoa.
These are huge paintings.
15
meters.
Times
so a meter
3.
is probably...
So it's like 45 feet.
Probably, yeah.
15 meters.
15 meters.
Is probably 45 feet. Dyson,
Let's do the math.
Please do our fact checking. But that's giant.
It's big. And it's tall.
49.
It's
49 feet.
Oh, you're close.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What
So
up,
49
math?
feet.
Whoa, math.
We're just talking about how we're not good at it. I mean, you didn't get the right answer, but
I
you're
did
close.
not get the right answer at
You're
all.
close.
I just assumed a yard is a meter, which is 3 feet. And okay. Anyway.
There's
Whoa.
so many different measurements that you could do.
That's okay. You know what? Who cares? Giant. It's a giant
Big painting.
project
Yes.
this man undertook.
Yeah. And then until the last few centuries, many people believed that Francesco Trinini painted the Triumph of Death. The reasoning behind it is that he had also painted the first fresco in there that adorned the walls, the crucifixion. But may dispute that is Buffalmacchio who painted it and actually painted a couple of their paintings as well.
Imagine you're the guy that did paint it and you're not getting credited.
I know. And it took me so long to figure out because there was a couple of different places where they were referencing Trinini, but then there was other places that were referencing Buffalmacchio.
Buffalmacchio.
And so, but when they were referencing Trinini, they assumed or thought that it was painted in 1350s, but it was actually painted earlier than that. So it turned out to be.
And then all of the history you're giving before this just adds to why it would be difficult for people to figure out exactly who did what and when, because you have these cases of people rebelling and whatever else is happening where records are being destroyed or lost. And it just adds to this bigger picture of trying to pinpoint a history and a timeline in history.
Or they don't sign it, or they do it anonymously. Yeah. So, and it's also noted that the Pisa was badly affected by the Black Death in 1348 and was interpreted as a divine interference and punishment for sins.
Well, that's in Italy, right?
Yeah.
And you said 70%
Yeah.
of the population.
So people thought the end was near. And it was basically for 70% of them. So, yeah, crazy.
Scary.
And then Barbara W. Tushman in her book also references this as well, the Triumph of Death, and describes as, quote, "Death swoops through the air towards a group of carefree, young, and beautiful noblemen and ladies who converse and flirt and entertain with each other with books and music in a fragrant grove of orange trees. A scroll warns that no shield of wisdom or riches, nobility or prowess, can protect them from the blows of the approaching one. Yeah. They have taken more pleasure in the world than in things of God. In a heaps of corpses nearby lie crowned rulers, a pope in tiara, a knight tumbled together with the bodies of the poor, while angels and devils in the sky contend for the miniature naked figures that represent their souls. Mm-hmm. A wretched group of lepers, cripples, and beggars, one with nose eaten away, others legless or blind or holding out a cloth-covered stump instead of a hand, implore death of deliverance. Above on a mountain, hermits leading a religious, contemplative life await death peaceably. Below, in a scene of extraordinary verve, a hunting party of princes and elegant ladies on horseback comes with sudden horror upon the 3 open coffins containing corpses in different stages of decomposition. One still clothed, on half rotted, one a skeleton." Vipers crawl over their bones. The scene illustrates the 3 living and the 3 dead. A horse catching the stench of death stiffens in fright with outstretched neck and flaring nostrils. His rider clutches a handkerchief to his nose. The hunting dogs recoil, growling in repulsion. In their silks and curls and fashionable hats, the party of vital, handsome men and women stare appalled at what they will become. End quote.
I love the absolute stark contrast that is depicted there.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of something you said earlier with the essentially 14-year-olds. What was it? Philip the Sixth?
Richard.
Richard
II.
Okay, Richard II. Man, so many names.
I know, there's a lot.
That guy who during a war is pretty much just wanting to party with his friends.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have this terrible war going on, this overall poverty amongst people, especially the lowest of classes.
A huge sickness coming through.
And then the picture you just painted there and everything you described is people of wealth and noblemen and women and whoever who are just so uneducated of what goes on below them and the people who really do suffer.
Exactly.
And you also said about the skeletalized...
The 3 forms of the corpses, yeah.
And goes right back to the depiction of death that you were talking about with the 3 sort of people dressed in their riches, mortified by the gradient of death.
Exactly. And it's a very common motif and theme that you see repeated. And I mean, I'm only talking about a couple of different paintings or illustrations or writings of it, but it's just repeated over and over and
I
over
love
again.
to see that the linear there, the common thread amongst all of it.
Yeah, with different changes here and there. I mean, in this case, death is shown as a woman.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me.
And is referenced as Lady Death in many cases. Lady Death. And in the bottom, the most bottom left of the painting, it depicts the hunting party on horseback, alarmed by the 3 corpses lying in coffins in front of them. In the bottom right corner of the painting is the group of maidens and a young man dressed in fine clothing enjoying the gardens. And between these depictions is Lady Death floating in the blue sky, holding a large scythe, preparing to swing a giant blade in the direction of the joyous maidens. As if to warn people that death might strike at any time.
Yeah.
And then beneath her is the heap of bodies from the newly dead that subjected to the angels and the devils, taking the souls from the deceased. Mixing among the bodies are the Pope, the crown rulers, the knight, and the bodies of the poor. So, and this signifies that, again,
anyone is susceptible to this, and you have those parallels of you don't know when, and death is not prejudice or bias in any way. It's just, you fall when you fall.
We all have our day.
Yeah,
exactly. And then in the top kind of right of the painting is the battle between the angels and the devils over the souls that are being released by Lady Death. And then sadly, most of the frescoes were destroyed after a bomb detonated during World War II.
Of course.
In July or August of 1944, right before the war ended, the year before, and it caused the ceiling to cave in and a fire to start. So most of that fresco was done.
But at least you have these people who have actively essentially archived it in a way of we'll write about it, we'll analyze it. It's in writing. We at least have the history about it. But yeah, the fact that something so nonsensical is what took it out.
Exactly. And it was reported that the bomb was from an allied Pearson at the time. So if it was in Italy, it would have been allied to Italy. I mean, Italy wasn't in a great position.
I was going to say it would have been a German, most likely.
Yeah.
If it's an ally.
I don't remember if they mentioned if they wrote it as ally with a capital A or ally with a lower A. If it was capital A, I would assume that it was England and France and the US and Canada. I would assume that if it's a lowercase a, then I would assume that it's the allies of Italy and Germany and Japan. But I can't remember if it's either or. But it did say allied bomb. So either way.
That's confusing.
A little confusing, eh?
But now it's okay, it doesn't matter because either way this fresco was destroyed. But now I'm okay, cool. So was it by one of their own men or did the good guys get in there thinking that they were
just doing war, and then
just doing war,
and then the painting got in the way. Obviously,
yeah.
How dare it stand still? But yeah. So unfortunately, yeah, the fire started. So, all this to say, people needed an outlet, a memento mori, a symbolic and artistic celebration of death, a reminder of how quickly life can be taken.
Mm-hmm.
And thus was born a new artistic genre on the universality of death, the danse macabre, or the dance of death.
Oh.
And this was inspired by the three living and the three dead. And it could be expressed through poetry, music, theater, writing, art, and it mainly featured death depicted through skeletons that joined the living in a dance. And it shows that every day is a dance with death until one day you stop dancing. And they dance on the graves, like their own graves.
I'm getting like major Renaissance times.
This is leading right into the Renaissance.
Yeah,
This is
okay.
the time, yeah. And when people reference doing the dance of death, it might mean like actually dying. Like you actually, like once you do the dance, you die. It could mean either or.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also believed that the dance of death was performed in churches or other sacred spaces before it was recorded as visual art.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. In France, the earliest known pictorial artistry of the Dance of Death was a series of murals on the walls of the cemetery of the Holy Innocents Church in Paris, which were painted in 1424 and 1425.
Mm.
And it depicts a dead king in his crown with his subjects all dancing with skeletons or corpses in between them.
Oh.
And this would be 75 years after the Black Death. And it showed 15 pairs of figures, each having a living figure dancing with a dead figure. And this mural was unfortunately destroyed in 1669 due to construction happening in the neighboring streets.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But luckily, in 1485, French printmaker Guy Marchand reproduced the cemetery's paintings, Danse Macabre, the Cardinal and the King, and Danse Macabre, the Chambermaid and the Housekeeper. Both depict two living persons, one attempting to turn away or pull away from death, and the other accepting their fate, while two skeletons grab and pull at the two living persons in each depiction.
I want a depiction of this on my wall. It sounds so cool.
It is kind of cool. It's just like almost like a pencil rendering of it. It's like kind of just black and white lines.
Mm-hmm.
But and then it's like the two men and then the two women also. And the Dance of Death inspires Death and the Maiden, a motif that often featured a skeleton taking a young maiden into the afterlife, mainly at her resistance or pleading. It is seen as more of a romantic portrayal of love, and often the woman is naked, clutched in the arms of death.
It's kind of like the absolute portrait of innocence.
Yeah, exactly. Even innocents die, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in 1509, German Renaissance painter Hans Baldung would paint the first of this motif, and the death and the woman. And it features a woman staring at herself in the reflection of a mirror she holds, while death, shown as a decomposing corpse, skeletal and gaunt, stands behind her holding an hourglass above her head. At her feet is a small child wrapped in some silk that hangs from her body, and a man is running towards death, lifting his hand to knock away death's arm away from the one that holds the hourglass above her head, trying to save her.
Mm-hmm.
And then in his next painting, it would be in 1517, and it is appropriately named Death and the Maiden. This is probably one of the more famous ones. And it features death as a skeletal figure with decomposing skin, kind of a receding hairline, and wearing a dirtied cloth. The maiden clasps her hands together, pleading with death to spare her. Her face and eyes are red as she cries, standing naked as death grips her hair, gesturing for her to move forward down into a tomb.
Ooh.
And above them are the words, "Here you must go."
Oh my god.
Yeah. So in 1590, Shakespeare mentions death in The Taming of the Shrew. And the line reads, quote, "Grim death, how foul and loathsome is thine image," end quote. And so kind of all this to say that the modern Grim Reaper that we know didn't appear until about like the 19th century.
Okay.
Though the term the Grim was a popular term for death in the 13th century, the first mention of like Grim Reaper appears in 1847 in a book called The Circle of Human Life, translated by Reverend Robert Menzies, and reads, quote, "All know full well that life cannot last above 70 or at the most 80 years. If we reach that term without meeting the Grim Reaper with his scythe, there or thereabout, meet him we sure shall. Death being thus the most certain of all certain events, why not begin at once the work of preparation for it," end quote.
I mean, great point.
Right? It's coming. And it's true at the, about 70 to 80 years sometimes. Hopefully we hope to reach at least 90.
And even, I mean, we do know that it is the most certain thing, because even think about in life, you create like a last will and testament and stuff like that, where the most certain thing is that you will die one day. So be prepared in as many ways as you can.
Exactly. And it can come at any time. And so looking at like the dark history of the Middle Ages, we see the development of death as a form of enlightenment, something to respect, something to fear, and something to celebrate. So why the scythe, the robes, the skeletal figure, the dark impending doom of your final day? The skeletal figures are obviously in relation to what happens to your mortal body after you die, since no one can factually paint or describe what the afterlife is like, right? And the scythe can be traced back to the agricultural disasters, like the plague and many generations of the famine, and as if to say that your soul could be reaped or harvested by death the day your dance stops.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's what they did with it, right?
Yeah.
And the robes are most likely attributed to like religious figures that would hold the funerary services upon your death.
That makes sense too.
Yeah. So kind of just bringing a lot of elements from a lot of different areas that they kind of saw on repeat over and over and over again, the symbolism of it.
Exactly.
And whether you believe in the Grim Reaper, like as female, male, wears a white robe or red, carried a scythe or an hourglass, whether it was reap your soul or it's going to guide it, it is also a reminder that death does not care for material possessions and there is no escape for anyone.
No, there isn't.
There isn't. And you want to hear kind of a little fun fact?
Yes.
The only days in your life that aren't 24 hours are the day you're born and the day you die.
Oh, that's true.
I
mean, yeah. Whoa.
Right?
The day I was born, my life was, that day was 2 minutes.
Born at a very young age.
I was born at 11:58 p.m. That's 2 minute day.
You're like last minute, baby. You're like coming in hot.
No, and fun fact, I was born on Thursday, May 12th. 2 minutes. I would have been a Friday the 13th baby, and my mom was trying to make the people at the hospital change it. Just be like, it's 2 minutes. Who cares? Make her Friday the 13th baby. No. They're like, ma'am, no. Literally can't do that.
No. And we're happy for it.
Yeah, I need to know exactly when I was born.
Exactly. You need the truth.
I need the truth.
So, yeah, do you believe in the Grim Reaper?
I believe in the Grim Reaper.
Tyson, do you believe in the Grim Reaper?
I'm gonna die someday.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed.
He said, I'm gonna die someday.
He's gonna catch these hands, though.
Coming and swinging?
Yeah.
Your hands against the scythe?
Oh.
Shing! Now you've got stuff for hands.
Dodge a wrench
and you're dead.
Dodge a sheath.
I mean, like he said, it's the only thing we know for certain.
It is.
That we're going to die someday. The Grim
guarantee.
Reaper will be there. And he doesn't give a fuck about your material possessions. Which is so interesting because when you were describing one of the depictions, like one of the paintings, and how it's like 15 pairs of people, like the closest people to the king or whatever it was, it reminds me of like in ancient Egypt where like pharaohs or whoever would pass and they would be entombed and they'd have all of their favorite possessions and sometimes even be buried with people that were close to them, because when they reach the afterlife. They want to have all of their things.
Yeah.
And it's like such a stark contrast, whereas the Grim Reaper is like, I don't give a fuck about any of that. Doesn't matter what you did, who you were, who you knew. I'm coming for you.
Exactly.
Because it's the only thing that's guaranteed.
Yeah. And you can't buy your way out. You
No.
can't bargain your way out. You can't negotiate your way out. Sometimes you can get a close call.
Oh,
And
for
you're
sure.
friggin' lucky as hell, and you might come back from it. You get a second chance.
Cheating
But
death.
yeah.
Hello, Final Destination.
But who's to say that when death does finally come for you, you don't pay for that cheat?
Oh, that's so true. It's like,
Right?
or it could be like a 2-for-1. It's like, you cheated death. Now I'm bringing you down with someone else.
Or the saying of once there is death, there is always death. Right? Wasn't that in like Men in Black or something that says that? But
That sounds about right.
right? Sounds like something from Men in Black. But either way, like, you know, there is always death somewhere. When, like, you know, you hear stories about people like, oh, my son made me, you know, late for work today. And he said that he needed to eat something extra. So we were 5 minutes late. And, you know, we get to a certain spot and we see this accident. If we had been here 5 minutes before, it would have been us.
That's so true.
Right? And it's like, and this kid's like, I knew, Mom, I wanted to save us or whatever. So I made you get me my waffle. I think it was like on a TikTok video or whatever. But it was crazy. Like things like that is crazy.
Yeah.
The choices you make. Could
Yeah, I
save
don't
you.
know the exact example you're talking about, but like that is something that has happened so many times to people. Even, yeah, it's just so relatable. I mean, there's been times where I'm sure people are like, oh, you know, I was driving and I would usually go right at this turn, but for some reason something was just telling me don't go that way this time, take the long way or whatever.
Go get
and
a
then,
coffee.
Yeah, and then later you find out that there was like some insane thing that happened, whether it was a really bad accident or like a fucking train derailment or something that happened, whereas if you were taking that right turn as you normally would, it could have been you.
Exactly.
It's so cool. Story. I love hearing stories like that.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
I love everything you told me. I love learning. I love all the information.
Lots of history in there.
All of the beautiful murals that have been painted in my head.
Well, you could actually go and see them if you look for them. So
yeah, some of the exact ones that you were describing, like if you send me the name of them or the artist or whatever, then I can post pictures or recreations or whatever on Instagram.
Yeah.
And alongside of that, we'll have photos of the El Naz update I gave at the beginning with the suspects and the persons of interest. And yeah, it's a good place to follow us over there because we always do post stuff related to the cases, topics, stories that we cover. And yeah. So thank you so much, Paige.
You're welcome. I had so much fun.
I love when you come on again, when you come on the show. And again, you'll be on in April.
Okay.
Coming up on 2 months there.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when in April, but we'll figure it out. And maybe until like I got like 2 months until then. I wonder if I can think of some suggestions for you. And
or if anyone else has any suggestions, again, let us know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What do you want to hear?
I'll go post some pictures about this case specific. So on that post, you can comment what you want to hear Paige cover.
Exactly. Let me know what you want to hear next time.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks Podbean for featuring our podcast.
Thank you.
And yeah, I guess until then, we will catch you on the dark side.
Bye.